Alright, it looks like that did record, so I'm going to go on to the next thing I wanted to show you, which was some games that kind of demonstrate what I mean by ground-based map control for Terran. So Zergs live and breathe map control. They have very fast armies, so they feel comfortable taking their army and putting it somewhere ridiculous, like to go attack your third. And they feel safe doing that because they know even if you counterattack, they'll still be able to kill your third and make it back in time to defend. So that means they have like utter map control. They can go anywhere they want with no ramifications, and you can't go anywhere because anywhere you go they get to shoot you in the face. And so most Terran builds rely on saying, fine, you can have map control, but I'm going to make one really big strong push and go win the game with that big strong push. And this is bad because if that big strong push doesn't work, you usually lose the whole game. And I don't like that. That's no fun. What I like is to get ground-based map control by making a medevac cloud and some marines. Now, as you saw, I just attacked with this is 17 minutes in, so I've already had the big battle. When you're working your way up to 2-2, you want to keep your Marines alive because Marines do a lot better once you have medevacs in 2-2. So that's the one time throughout the entire game where you'll have more than a small number of Marines. And then you have a big battle, you lose off all your Marines, and now you have reinforcing waves. Because you have 7 racks and one of them has a tech lab, you'll tend to have 13 new Marines showing up every 25 seconds. So you attack with these 13 new Marines, and in some cases 13 or more medevacs. Like in this case I'm attacking with like 8 Marines and 15 medevacs. So each Marine gets his own personal medevac, and that makes those Marines very strong. Now, because you only have one battle in which you have a large number of Marines, that battle becomes the most tedious and obnoxious and important part of your game. During that one battle, you really need to make sure to focus on your Marine spreading and get those Marines spread out, because that's the only time when a fungal growth can hit more than like 8 troops. And a fungal growth, in order to be efficient against Marines, has to hit 10 Marines, and against medevacs it has to hit at least 5 medevacs. So to prevent fungal growth from being efficient, all you got to do is spread your guys out so that it's impossible for him to hit more than 10 Marines or 5 medevacs with one fungal growth. And that becomes extremely easy when you do this sort of thing, where you're constantly reinforcing with small groups of Marines. As you can see, right now I only have 17 Marines in this battle. So it's very hard to get a fungal growth that'll hit more than 10 Marines when the total number of Marines on the entire map is 17. So these small forces reinforcing constantly means that he has a very short amount of time between one fight and the next. And when Zerg doesn't have a lot of time between one fight and the next, he can't do things like morph banelings or like group up his lings into two sides so that he can hit you from multiple angles, or things like, say he has 10 roaches and he's got 16 more that are about to pop. He'd normally want to keep those 10 alive so that they can fight alongside the 16 that are about to pop. But he can't wait for those 16 if you're constantly attacking him over and over and over, because as long as you have troops within a couple of feet of a hatchery, any time he tries to pull back and wait a second and like gather his thoughts and gather his troops, he's gonna lose a hatchery or a queen or a bunch of drones or whatever. So you'll see after I still actually have troops at his rally point. I still had 1 Marine and several medevacs at his rally point, and that buys me control of the entire map, because until he clears up his rally point, he can't make a big army and send it anywhere. So then when I hit these 2 expos that are behind the front lines, so to speak, he can't defend them, and so that's just kind of the end of the game. So the same sort of thing can be demonstrated by this game in the GSL between SC2 and I Am Lucira, which is the VOD number 65,213. And usually I come with wave after wave of Marine, and I keep a cloud of medevacs floating overhead, but what SC2 is going to do is the same thing except with just Marines and no medevacs. And obviously these guys have a much higher skill level than you or me. But even at the tippity top of the universe, the best Zerg players in the world, you'll see that suicidal aggression is still something that Zergs just can't really handle. So he's going to come with some Marines, and there's going to be a battle, and ignore the specifics of the battle. What's important is that as soon as that battle is over, there's another battle. these Marines are here too. And SC2 is rallying another group. So after that second battle is now over, look, now there's a third battle. And after this third battle is over, there's going to be a fourth battle. Here's the fourth wave of guys coming down. And so the Zerg never gets a chance to breathe. He never gets a chance to make sure that he's got his workers spread out properly between bases, or his queens in the right places, or he's going to miss several larva injects. It takes time to morph banelings, so he spawns a group of Zerglings that's enough to defend this wave, but he needs to spawn some of them into banelings and wait next to those banelings so that he'll have something to go in with, and he attacks with the banelings. So yeah, and so this constant pressure, constant reinforcement sort of stuff means that any time the Zerg wants to take 2 seconds to himself to think about something or to do something, he's going to lose drones. So he's constantly losing drones, he's constantly taking damage against his Roach Warren. There's never any place for him to regroup and gather his thoughts. So even in situations like this, where the Zerg finally was able to respond with enough troops to fight off the battle, he's missing a larva inject right now. You can see there's no larva injected either of these two hatcheries, and there's only a larva injected as main. And so he's just getting further and further behind on his ability to produce the Zerglings necessary to fight this off. Yeah. You get it, right? If you attack often enough, then it's much easier to split your Marines, because you're not trying to split freaking 90 Marines. You've got a total of 18 or 14, and it's much easier to split 14 Marines than to try to split 90. It's pretty much impossible to split 90 Marines properly. So the more often you fight, the easier your splits are, and the better your splits are, the better you're going to do against all splash. And that means that Zerg ends up having to rely on non-splash units like Roaches and Zerglings. And in smaller numbers, those don't do very well either, and it just all kind of goes to hell for the Zerg. So anyway, this continues forever and ever, but the constant suicidal aggression eventually overwhelms the Zerg. So let's go on to the third game. Basically, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 examples of this. Basically, this is the only way I ever attack. I don't like to usually win games with a big doom drop. It's not like I have one big attack and that wins the game for me. Usually my only big attack is the first one, and that's the one I lose, because Zergs are they're like programmed to defend against one big attack, because mech play, any play that includes tanks, Marine tank, Marine medevac tank, Marine medevac marauder tank, Thor Hellion tank, Thor Hellion Marine tank, all that kind of stuff, mech play has a 1 to 3 minute reinforce time. So if he wins a battle, he gets 3 minutes of peace and quiet to rally his troops. So Zergs like to gather up their big ball of troops and go run over your battle, and then take an expo and build drones and transfer drones and worry about their macro. And with pure Marine or pure Marine medevac, they never get that breathing room that they're used to. So they'll commit unreasonable numbers of troops to try to finish up your attack just so that they'll get breathing room, and then even when they do finish up their attack, they don't get any breathing room, because we don't need battle synergy between our multiple tanks or whatever to be effective. We can come with 8 Marines, we can come with 15 Marines. They're both exactly as effective. Yeah. So it's something that Zergs aren't necessarily used to, and that plays really heavily in our favor. Also, being so close to one of his mining bases means that he can't even think about counterattacking. He can't go scout for expos, he can't go cut off reinforcements, because if he ever takes any part of his army and moves away from this position, he loses his drones. He can't mine from this base anymore. So you can see I'm throwing up a completely naked expansion over on the mid-right, and there's nothing the Zerg can do about it. I'm not worried. You know? Another benefit of the suicidal aggression is that when you come back over and over, somebody who makes a cloud of mutas and then some Ling Baneling to deal with your ground troops, his goal is to use the mutas like you would use stalkers to do a little bit of damage in the backfield while the Lings and Banelings distract your fire so that the mutas aren't taking any hits. But if you attack multiple times in a row, eventually all of those tanking units he's counting on will be gone. And then he's forced to fight with naked mutas against your Marines or lose a hatchery. So, and those are both bad choices, so whichever one he chooses, it comes out in your favor. Yeah, so I think that's probably all I wanted to show from this video. And I'm going to stop again just to make sure everything's recording properly, because I really hate recording for 20 minutes and then finding out it only recorded 6 minutes of it. So I'll be right back.